we spoke for like a half an hour and he was like, okay, you can work in this kitchen, but in pastry. And I said, no. And I left.
Then what happened?
And I cried all the way home. And I was like, this is crazy. So I went back on Sunday. I introduced myself to everybody that was down there. I spoke zero Spanish whatsoever. I worked there for like 2 weeks and the chef came flying down the staircase. And I said, yeah, I lied. I'm sorry. I said, but I've been here for 2 weeks. Ask any one of these people. Have I not helped you peel carrots? Have I not helped you butcher tuna? Have I not helped you clean calamari? And no, of course, nobody said a word. And I was like, if you want me to go, I'll go. And he didn't say go. And I remained there for 4 years.
Today on The Messy Parts, we're going to have on Chef Ayesha Nurdjaja. You might know her from her very popular restaurants in New York, Shuka and Shukette, which I absolutely love. Or you might know her from Titan's Bobby Flay's cooking show, or maybe even her many appearances on the Today Show. But her road to chef was not so obvious. She actually thought she was going to be a lawyer. And then something happened that involves diamonds, DJing, and cooking. Let's have a conversation with Ayesha. Ayesha, I can't say how excited I am to have you here on the Blue Couch. You and I got to meet actually at a party here at the house.
At your house. And it's nice to be here. It's a beautiful home. And I remember coming in and I was like, I thought that I knew how to throw a house party. And then I came to your house party and I was like, wow, I got to up my game.
Really? Why?
It was beautiful. It was beautiful. I don't know. I think you had like a good group of people. It was like obviously abundance in food, which I think we share in common, but it was done in such a way that it felt comfortable for everybody. It's kind of intimidating sometimes to go to someone's house for a party that you don't know, especially in their home.
For you? No.
You don't think so?
No. You're definitely an extrovert.
For sure. But it's still, you don't know what to expect. It's like, is it going to be proper? Is it going to be this? It was just like, it was the best party I've been to. I've told everybody about it.
And I met Vicky as well, who then said to me, you told her she really needed to move into the brownstone.
Yes. She's been looking ever since.
You can all move in. I'd like to live in a commune where we have good food and fun.
I can't live this too close to the restaurant because I would be there all the time.
I remember when that restaurant was announced and how we waited a long time to see what was coming. And then after a long wait, which I know must have been incredibly stressful on your end,
but worth it.
We also had COVID, Shukette opened up. I mean, it was almost like an overnight success.
It was crazy. It's funny because we had the space, we completely gutted it, which took months. And then right before we were going to really open, COVID hit. There was something very special about the Shukette, like kind of brand in my head, if you will, or restaurant itself. And I think when we opened the doors of Shukette, it was kind of like wearing the most beautiful dress without Spanx. There was a freedom to it. And I don't know if you're saying you don't know what that's like. But
I heard you say that and it actually made me laugh. Why did you think that?
I think as time goes by, when you first start cooking, you're learning.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, I don't think you ever stop learning, but you're learning, right? You're learning how to butcher, you're learning how to saute, you're learning proper food handling, you're learning cuisines. And that thirsty knowledge gets you interested in other cuisines and allows you to move your resume forward, right? You're working for great chefs. And then you get to a point where you kind of like I like the way that they're doing it, but I would do it another way. But you're in no position to create because you work for someone else. And I think by time Shukette opened, I had like 2 feet on the ground and it was very secure in what that food was going to be. Is that why it's successful? I don't know. I think it's the vibe. There's so many reasons why like Shukette's almost like bottled magic.
It is 100% bottled magic. I want to go back to who you were as a kid, because I think that so much of our life is formed sort of in that journey, right? Like we sort of land on this couch and it's like a success story. But there's a growing up that happens that really sort of shapes us.
So I grew up in Gravesend, Brooklyn, where I currently live. The joke is that I've lived in an 11-block radius. And 4 years ago, I bought a house. And before that, it was really a 4-block radius. And my best friends are still my friends from high school, 4th grade. So we live in a walking distance from each other. My mother lives 5 blocks away. My brothers moved to Jersey, but there's always got to be one in the bunch, right? And I grew up in a very Italian-American neighborhood. My grandmother, when she came here from Italy, lived in Cobble Hill before it was what it was. She lived on a block called Strong Place, which is a completely landmark building. And when she moved here, she kind of moved here with 20 other families from her region of Italy. And we grew up there on the weekends. They would come to our house during the weekdays. And it was just a very convivial, like family feeling. There were a lot of elders on our block. And my mother likes to always say that I would pull up like a small folding chair. The guys were probably all retired. They used to go to the OTB. They smoked cigars. They used to drink like cans or like little aperitifs. And I used to pull up my little folding chair right in front of them and hang out with them. And at first, he was like looking out the window because obviously any parents, like, why is she hanging out with old men? But they happen to be just like, they got a kick out of me because I guess I used to ask them like crazy questions and I wanted to be in the group. I mean, I am definitely learned how to drink from them and I smoke good cigars. So something, something good came from it. But I was just always inquisitive. I'm the first of two children. I always had an opinion and I was very strong willed. And my parents were just like, should definitely be a lawyer. And growing up, they were just like, you had the gift of gab, but obviously it took two left turns.
So you had an Indonesian father and an Italian mom, and now you cook Mediterranean. So I love this because you're a classic New York story. Was middle school, high school, was that easy for you?
I had a great time in school. I had a lot of friends. We were always involved in music and sports and extracurricular activities. And I just remember like always having my day filled. Neighborhoods were different then. We grew up with the same kids on our block. We would go to the beach on a Saturday morning. Everybody's like, why don't you live in the city? Why don't you move here? And the commute sometimes, yes, obviously today it takes me an hour plus, but it's home for me. There's a safeness where I live. It's not about crime or anything like that. I think it's a safeness that there's like a familiarity that I grew up there. Obviously things have changed. People move, stores change, different ethnicities move in and that grows neighborhoods, which is amazing. But somehow it's all the same for me.
Well, it is definitely
Yeah.
familiar, right? You know, Lin-Manuel, you know, he also still remained in
Yes.
Washington Heights. It's one of the things I think about because as somebody who sort of left her country, I sort of lost that sense of belonging and was always looking for it.
I definitely feel that way when I'm home. I feel the safety. I feel belonging. I feel a sense of this is my space, you know, and it's not just my house. It's like where I live, the stores, the fact I can walk places that I know, the fact that I could kind of, when people come, because it's like, it's a journey to come to my part of Brooklyn. It's very easy for me to point out memories of different stages of my life on these blocks of Gravesend.
But your grandmother lived a little bit further away,
Yes.
right by Sahadi and Damascus. So did your love of Middle Eastern food or Mediterranean food come from that? Because those are amazing landmarks.
Well, I think my father cooked a lot of Indonesian food. So I want to say that I grew up like, you know, already understanding the spice trade, if you will. But my grandmother was very adventurous woman. I mean, my mother marrying outside of her own culture was a wild thing. And I want to say that, yes, it was a thing. And I mean, ultimately, that was the demise of their marriage because
did they get divorced?
They did when I was 12 years old. When they first met, my grandmother did not even know where Indonesia was on the map, you know? My father was Muslim and my mother was Catholic. And there was no way that like
Were they practicing either of them?
I would say equally practicing and not practicing. You know, I think we grew up in the church. For sure, I went to Catholic school, but I wouldn't say that we went to church every Sunday, definitely for the holidays and, you know, all the grand things. And I think when my father came here, he was looking for experience and his entire family, which like when I look back at it, must have been such a heartache to leave, you know, where you're from at 17, probably not even knowing the language.
Belonging.
Right. And he was searching for it. Right. And he found it in my mother. And I think my grandmother kind of saw that love and said, let's see how this goes. But there were rules to it. So my grandmother said that my mother would not convert. It's not that she wanted my father to convert, but he had to be okay that we were Catholic and that if they ever had children, that they would remain Catholic. And my father agreed then.
And did your mom always listen? Because she doesn't strike me as somebody who
she
just
definitely
listens.
does not. She definitely does not. But I don't think in the beginning of the relationship, because my father wasn't so practicing or an active participant in his religion, that it was an issue. They were just like going through the motions of a relationship. And I think my father was intrigued by the Italian culture and like new food.
I mean, if you're looking for belonging, there is no culture
you find
better.
It, right?
Yeah.
On a Sunday at 2:00, if you're ever looking for it, you knock on an Italian store and you're going to find belonging and wrapped in red sauce for sure. So it worked for a while, their marriage. And I think that my father was obviously a good person. My grandmother saw through that, but people would come from Indonesia and kind of stay with us. And they would see that like we were eating pork and they would kind of like, you know, poke the bear in my dad. So as we got older, he kind of was like, well, I want the kids to understand my religion. My mother was like 100%, but he didn't want us to like continue with the sacraments. And my mother was like, well, that's kind of like too late because they're enrolled in school and that was kind of part of the deal. And he kind of really succumbed to the peer pressure of his cousins and people that came here. And it came to the point when he wanted my mother to convert and for us to be Muslim.
That's a major thing.
It was a major thing. And it led to the demise of their marriage, unfortunately.
It had to have been difficult for your parents to begin to have conflict and divorce.
It was. I think my mother felt like she was like T-boned and not the delicious kind. She didn't know where it came from. And she was like, you're going to let these people influence what we've
because it's an about face.
Yeah. I guess he didn't have the backbone at the time to stick up for what he had. He ended up losing it. My parents, you know, I grew up not in a very typical divorced house. When my father died, he wanted my mother. My mother was the love of his life. And he, over the years, they tried to get back together like later in life, but he always loved her and he knew that he made a mistake.
After he left.
After he left. Yep. They both subsequently married someone else. Didn't work out on either end. I think what my dad did to my mom, she could never forgive him, but she respected him because he was.
Did he stay in the neighborhood when they divorced?
He lived in Prospect Heights.
So you got to still see him
all the time.
Okay. So they tell you that you're going to be a lawyer. It's so funny because I had a teacher who told my mom, oh, Maryam's going to become a journalist. Took me until now to actually. But in your case, you actually went to Pace. You studied business.
Mm-hmm.
What made you decide to study business, first of all?
Well, then I went through a little bit of phase when I got into high school because I was like good in science and math. And my parents were like, well, what about pharmacy school? I don't know why. Like someone's so opinionated.
School?
Yeah. So I went, my first year of school, I went to LIU. I got in a full scholarship to the pharmacy program. And
but was there a pharmacist in your family?
There was nothing. I have no idea. You know what? I think I listened to my mother in all the wrong ways. But I think like growing up, I think it was like so important for them that I had like this profession, whatever it was. Like my mother started out as a teacher and then she became principal. And like she is all about, first of all, city jobs and working. My brother works for the MTA. He's a foreman now. He has 8 years to retire. And I was not doing that. And so she really wanted me.
Why not? Why weren't you? It just
wasn't my thing. I have no, like, it's so funny because a lot of people, I always say like, I have no interest in teaching, but I guess I teach cooking.
You're a mentor. You love being a mentor.
It just wasn't the thing. I didn't want to do that. You also don't know what pension is. You don't know what benefits are, right? You have no idea when you're at that age.
That kind of a job because of the security that came long term.
Not so much for the joy of it. Although I think that both my mother and brother have joy in their jobs. My brother always wanted to be a mechanic. My mother forced him to go to college. And then after the second year, she was like, forget it. Go to the school, do your thing, because it was just an uphill battle. But I think for my mother, she was the first person in her family to graduate from high school, let alone go to college. She has her doctorate. And she felt like those things brought wealth. Mm-hmm. Wealth might not mean like just financial, but just security and having the ability to live your life.
What did your friends think you were going to be? They didn't think you were going to be a lawyer, did they?
No, but they kind of like, when I was in junior high school, my mother made me work. One day she picked me up and I was like, where are we going? And she's like, we're going to the store. When I was a little girl, my mother was very big in like teaching us things when we didn't know we were learning. So she would be in the car driving. She had this huge Seville. It was green with white leather interior. And we would sit in the back and she would say, if I went to the store and bought 5 oranges and 3 apples, how much fruit do I have? And she's like, well, if that was $5 and the other thing was $3.25, how much money would you have left over? So she would quiz us like on the dime.
Yeah.
But I don't know, for some reason as a child, it seemed like a game. So
we were down,
right? But we were down with it, right? But she was actually teaching us. So anyway, she's like, get in the car. I'm like, okay. She takes me to the grocery store and I'm like, Top Tomato was called. It was like a fruit and vegetable store. So I'm like, oh, we're going shopping? I don't even know what's happening. So she says, this is Tom. I said, hi, Tom. This is my daughter. She said, I'll see you later. I said, what's happening? Tom gives me an apron and all of a sudden I'm working the cash register. She doesn't even discuss it with me. We're not even having a conversation.
Why didn't you leave?
I should have. I know. But I was nuts.
Oh, you definitely
and I was like,
listened to your mom.
I know. What a punk. I think that was one of my first jobs. The second time she hook-winked me was she called my high school and said, you know, Ayesha can have working papers. Like, where could she work? And they said there was a place, it was called J. Marlene's. It was a bowling alley. And there was like Saturday mornings that they were looking for somebody to work the concession stand.
So work ethic was something she definitely wanted to instill in you.
And look what happened. See?
Well,
backfired.
Yeah.
Right.
I don't know. Did it? Because I think you work all the time.
That's what I'm saying. This is not a real life.
Oh, we're going to talk about that.
So yeah, I was serving shivas on the rocks to like 75-year-old men who were smoking inside of always old men with smoking.
I'm going to say,
I know,
like
it's a
full
pattern.
circle to your table on the street.
And I worked in a bowling alley. And then another time she got her taxes done. And she said she drove me to these people's house. They were old Italian, the most wonderful people in the world. I sat there and I filled out the tax forms at 1040s. He had all of the local precincts. The cops were his clients. And I would fill out the tax paperwork.
Did you ever rebel?
Later.
Later when?
Later. When I moved out, when I was 19, I was like, this is BS.
That when you went to Pace?
Yes.
When you moved out, did you come into the city or did you stay local?
No, I stayed local. I moved around the corner. I lived on West 7th between 86th and V.
I'm moving to the corner.
I moved to West 6th between V and U. But it was, you know what? It wasn't the same house.
You then go to Pace. You decide to study business. What happened to pharmacy school?
I left. I was miserable. And I went to Pace and I was equally as miserable. I had good grades and my mother was cool with that. But I was at that time like realizing that like life was so much more grand than that. Like coming into the city every day,
Uh-huh.
like hanging out, clubs at night. I mean, this was the city that never slept.
What clubs did you go to?
The Palladium,
Uh-huh.
Shy, CeeLo, you name it.
The Tunnel.
Yes, exactly. And I loved it. I just loved every part of it. When I finally graduated from Pace, I just, I went to go work at a law firm and there was something missing. I felt like I was like ticking boxes. Passion hits you in different ways in your life, right? It could come from love. It can come from things that excite you. And I just feel like there was something missing in that realm.
Like, how did you know to feel that? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I guess because I've had such joy throughout my life with relationships with either my friends, loved ones, my family, at work, I just didn't feel joy. I was getting in trouble for not being at my desk all the time. I was like socializing. And it was like kind of easy to phone it in because that work was repetitive. It was not challenging. And maybe that was my fault because I wasn't giving it my all.
But you still applied to law school.
I did because I had to follow it through. But it was at that point where I was working for a big law firm, 120 Broadway, and I was working for the son of this big person, and he was a mess. And I went in and talked to his dad, and I was like, I don't think I want to work here anymore.
Yeah.
And he was like, what are you talking about? And he was like, I just think like I need a change.
Yeah.
So he said, take the day off. So I went home and I was on the train, and like people tell you all the time, like write down what you love. So I wrote down.
Who tells you that? Because I
don't
also
know.
used to write down what I loved. I loved hearing that about you because I used to make lists of things I was passionate about.
Time.
I was like, who told me to do that?
The first time I went to Paris, I went to Louis Vuitton. I bought a wallet. When I bought a wallet, I wrote in that wallet a bucket list. I have not seen that wallet in forever. And I was going through my closet and I was like, oh my God, I haven't seen it. And I opened it up and there was a list of 30
I'm sorry,
things.
what's on the bucket list?
Oh my God. Own a home, dance bachata, salsa, merengue like it was your native music, live abroad for 6 months. I'd have to show it to you. There was just so many things on there. And like, I had almost accomplished everything on that list.
Wow. What's left that you haven't done?
The live abroad thing for 6 months. That's why it sticks out to me.
It's coming.
Get married was the second one and have children.
Do you still want all those things?
I struggle with it. I've always wanted to be a mom, and I think I would be a great mom. I just never really wanted to do it alone. I give tons of credit for people that do it on their own. It's just a lot.
Yeah.
And I love collaboration. I would like to have a husband to take care of this kid to give them another perspective. I also have a job that now is it could be, you know what? Now that I'm getting older, it could happen. That's what I want to say.
So
because my time is different.
So you still want kids, you still want to get married, and you still want to live abroad.
The live abroad thing, I'm not sure if I want to live. I would like to take longer vacations.
You make this list.
Music.
And on the list is music, diamonds, and cooking. Sorry, can we talk about why diamonds?
My family, blame them. My aunt, would spoil me with, my first pair of diamond studs. And then every year was, a bracelet that had, a mini diamond in it. And now it's, it gets out of control. Now it's, my jeweler's, my best friend. The music, I've always loved music. Lots of different genres of music. And from the club scene, I always wanted to be a DJ. To me, the DJ was, the center of the room, the person that controlled the crowd, the vibe. And I pictured myself like Tiesto at the Vegas parties, playing music with the big lights and cannons full of confetti spraying on everybody, my name in lights. How do you get there from an iPod? I didn't know how to do that. And, the next day I went to the New York Gemology School and I said, I want to deal in diamonds. And the woman was very nice. And she said, that's not how it works. She says, it's the thing that kind of you inherit. She's like, you have to study gems. And I was like, forget this. And then the cooking thing happened and I went to the Institute of Culinary Education. I met this woman, Linda Simon. She was the director of administration and she took me on a tour of the school.
Did that feel like that was a shortcut going to culinary school?
Because it wasn't about being a chef then. You see what I'm saying? Was it different? I saw the DJ thing, right? And I saw covered in diamonds. I could see that. But the cooking thing, I didn't see the end. All I said is that I want to cook.
You didn't really cook growing up. You
Zero.
were in a home where there was a lot of food and love through food.
Didn't
but
peel
you
carrots. Didn't help anything.
Why didn't your mom make you help in the kitchen?
I don't know. Oh, because she had me polishing the furniture.
Oh, yeah. And also, she had you filling out tax
Yeah,
forms.
exactly. Thank you. And computing how many pounds of oranges were on sale. So the cooking thing, when I first moved out, I realized I didn't know how to cook when I was hungry. I was like, what do I do here?
And you learned from TV.
TV. Watching Lydia. The first thing I made was risotto stuffed tomatoes. The day that I made that, there was a connection inside me that I had never seen before. Meaning, like, it was a different spark. It was like I created this with my own hands. I've always had an appreciation and an affection for food and understood how powerful food is.
Mhm.
But when you create it with your own hands, is a whole nother ballgame. So I just wanted to tap more into that.
But you were cooking for your friends at night, I remember you
Yes.
telling me.
hmm
So they were sort of seeing the magic unfold and how talented you were at it. So,
Yeah, but again, it wasn't like I wanted to be a chef. It was more like a party.
Yeah.
Aisha's always good at the
oh,
parties.
you wanted to throw parties.
Right. It was the party.
Well,
It was
diamonds,
the wine,
music.
yeah, it all fits. Listen, my there's a through line. There's a through line here. You know what I'm saying? So that's really it. And I went to culinary school and I worked at the law firm from 9 to 5. I went to school from 6 to 10. And when the program was over, I had been telling the people at the law firm that, like, this is really what I wanted to do. Again,
Did they think you were
not
crazy?
insane,
hmm
insane. My parents were the most disappointed.
Yeah.
And
So
I
what
think,
happened
like,
when you told
of
them?
all the trials and tribulations we have had, the chef thing was the most.
But your father had actually worked as a chef.
But for him, it was a means to support his family. It
Mhm.
wasn't a passion.
He wanted better for you.
Yeah. And that's why people come here, right? From
Uh-huh.
different countries. So when my father came here, he was a chef and he used to send like 90% of his paycheck back to his family because they had nothing,
Yeah.
basically. And he felt like we had everything. My mother didn't work at the time. He wanted her to stay home and take care of the kids. She definitely did want to work, and eventually she did. They were disappointed. And I think that throughout my life, like you're telling me, like I didn't rebel. I always had a fat mouth, and there were definitely the teenage years of the slamming of the door. So I'm not going to say that didn't happen. My mother would love to be on the podcast to explain to you how deep that went.
Next go,
The
we'll
next
have
one,
her
okay.
on.
But that being said, we'll talk about my book a little later. But when I first wrote the book, I said that my parents would have rather me be a prostitute because the money was big and the time and effort was little. What I chose to do was this career that my mother felt like was going to rob me of everything
Mhm.
and give nothing back, both financially and for a lifestyle.
Did you know they were going to be disappointed before you opened your mouth and told them?
Not to a grand level that they would not talk to me.
They stopped talking to you.
They definitely did, yeah.
So I'm sorry, can you just walk us through? Do you call your parents
So I
together?
called my mother when I was at the Institute of Culinary Education. I called my mom. I needed her to co-sign the loan
Mhm.
forms. And my parents made me pay for college. They felt like that was part of like your rite of passage, which was ridiculous. But anyway, that's another story. My mother was like, I'm not co-signing this loan.
Mhm.
I had terrible credit. When I got to Pace, I walked into the door and there was an AOL Platinum Visa card that they gave me with $1,000
Oh,
credit.
I remember
And
those.
that just started. The first thing I bought was a dog.
What?
I bought a Maltese. His name was Spanky. The dog was $800. The cage was $200, and I had $500 cash to pay for all the little toys and everything. That was my first spend.
That's how you started going into debt?
Yep. And it just spiraled after that. Trust me. So she was like, I'm not signing this thing. And I'm like, I need you to sign this thing. And I called my dad and he was like, what is this thing for? And he was like, culinary school. Are you crazy? No way. And I was like, well, you two figure it out because somebody's got to sign this thing because I'm coming here, with it or not. So my mom signed and she was like, you're going to pay me a little bit every week. And I was like, no problem. My mother really felt that like if I learned how to cook and like got it out of my system, that I would like move on to the next.
Mhm.
That wasn't the case.
Did your dad stop speaking to you?
They both did. It was not until I quit my job at the law firm to work for free for Lydia.
Oh, that's when they stopped
That's when they
speaking to you.
stopped. Yep. I had a car. I had to return it. I went from making, let's just say $80,000 a year to maybe $6.25 an
This
hour.
is when you actually got a job working for free at a stage, like at a
Yep,
restaurant.
yep.
And so they definitely didn't like that.
It was terrible because in a lot of ways, I was going through the most challenging change that was also bringing me joy. And the people that mean the most to me weren't there. And I think that they felt that if they kind of like, that would deter me. But that was so wrong because now the fuel to prove them wrong was even stronger.
Wow, that might actually have been the thing that unlocked you.
It could have been.
So you go to culinary school and did you immediately know like you were in the right place?
I was having a ball. I was learning. I was like teaching in my class like before. So when I went to school from 6 to 10, a lot of people in that school weren't like kids.
Mhm.
They were like adults that either wanted to learn how to cook or be chefs. We were 28 students and I am the only one that's still a chef.
Wow.
Yeah.
What
I have
happened
3
to the
friends.
rest of them?
They went either back to the jobs that they had or they all have tried the field out and just realized that it's hard.
It is hard.
And there are zero financial benefits for a very, very long time. And it's hard to sustain.
If you knew what you know now, would you have done it?
100%.
So you go to culinary school and you're loving it, even though it's like you're having two lives, right?
Yep.
The day job, the night job. And then how do you get the stage job? How do you actually break into and by the way, it's like going from class, which is fun, to, I mean, it's not fun in a kitchen, especially as a woman.
The thing is that like now I foster a lot of high school students in the food education fund and that want to know what it's like to be a chef. They want to be a chef. And I tell them the truth.
Which is?
I don't deter them from it. I tell them it's a hard life. It's much better now than it ever was because I think that work-life balance exists. After COVID, a lot of things have changed for the restaurant business. But you really have to love it. And I think you need to spend time in it and understand that. Give yourself like 6 months. I'm gonna stage in a restaurant for 6 months, paid, obviously, and see how you feel. And if you're on the fence about it, then go do something else. But if it's that thing that keeps you up at night, that has that burning in your soul, then you got to go for it.
And you went to Italian food. I mean, that's what was
Yes.
like your initial
Yeah,
gut
I was
instinct.
enamored with water and pasta, and like water and flour can make pasta
Mhm.
with or without eggs. I found that to be like magical.
What did you like about that?
I thought it was just magic. There was these two ingredients that looked like nothing, right? Big powdery, like poof of flour, water, eggs, and you mix that and it makes the most amazing thing. I mean, to me, pasta is one of the most soul satisfying things to eat.
You're now moving into this 80-hour back-breaking work, right?
Mhm.
It goes from, fun with friends, some safety, to you're just in it.
Yep.
And so what do you think it is about you that you didn't quit?
I really loved it. I felt like I was learning every day. I felt fulfilled. I always say like I used to have really good days or still and really bad days, but at the end of the day, like this is what I was meant to do.
Mhm.
I had to be the best in that kitchen, whatever it took. So if it took 16-hour days, 18-hour days, me not sleeping, me carrying veal stock up 20 flights of concrete stairs in the basement of a kitchen, reading the notes and all of the recipes on the train all the way from 57th in Lexington all the way to Gravesend, which would be like a 2-hour train ride at 2:00 in the morning. I was going to be successful in this,
Mhm.
not to be a chef. It was like living in the moment. Does that make
Mhm.
any sense?
No,
And
it does not make any sense. I'd like an explanation because I'm like, that sounds so amazing, but what is that?
it's just a sick drive that I had. It wasn't about the end goal. Like right now in my career, I have like end goals. I
What's your
can
end
see
goal?
myself. I'm not sure. I have like not to work the way I work. That's my end goal. My end goal is also to like diversify my portfolio more. Like, is it more restaurants? Is it like the book? Is it other things? There's so much more out there that chefs can do now
Mhm.
than ever. And I think obviously the TV thing has come my way, which I think I've had a lot of fun with. Maybe there are more restaurants. Maybe there are restaurants in different places. I'm not sure. But the end goal at one point was to become a chef.
Mhm.
Then the end goal after that was to have your own restaurant.
Mhm.
You know, I never thought about myself having two. I never knew like a
You'd be a
moving.
celebrity. Sorry,
Yeah.
let's just say it.
Yeah, okay. It's a funny for me. It's funny because like I still picture myself in a lot of ways still at Felidia, learning and teaching, but I still love it. I
Mhm.
still have the passion for it, and I still think that connection that I have with food. And now that I have a restaurant where that's totally open, that I could actually see people having like visceral enjoyment of eating my creations, like that thing.
There is no back of the house, front of the house in Shukette. I mean, I think it is kind of like having a party with your friends over.
Yep.
So what made you pick Felidia as a restaurant that you started at?
Well, Lydia was the first person that I watched on television. Lydia was like watching a nonna on television, a grandma. She
Mhm.
had these hands of magic. And if you watch her, like a lot of these recipes look very, very simple. She had this way about talking about food, cooking food that was super approachable. And she made it look easy, almost effortless, if you will. And every now and then her grandchildren would come on, her son, her daughter, her mother. And there was something that just resonated with me. And I had just been enamored with her and said to myself, like, if there was an end goal in my mind, like I would want to be like her.
Mhm.
I'd eaten at Felidia maybe like 5 or 6 times before I actually worked there for birthdays or celebrations. I felt like to me, she was one of the first celebrities,
Mhm.
even outside of like that she was a chef, that I wanted to know. You know, like I remember having her sign a book at a table. And when she came around the table, I went with these people from the law firm that I worked in Brooklyn. They took me for my birthday. And when she came to the table to sign the book, I couldn't even talk to her. like a woman whose cheeks jowls are filled with words. I couldn't even utter hello. I was like so starstruck, and I was like, this is crazy.
Did you know that was the place you were going to want to work?
When it was time to stage at the restaurant, I chose that place. They said you can come in, and they made me do mundane things, peel garlic. They stuck me in between kind of like the pasta station and the dish pit. And I remember just standing there watching service, and the chef just expedited in Italian, and they responded back to him in Spanish. And these plates were coming up, and I felt like I was sitting at the front row of like the ballet or the opera to assimilate to what that felt like. And I was just watching this show, and I was like, how in God's creation do they know how to make these things?
Mhm.
How is all this food coming at the same time to the window? It was like, I was fascinated by it. I remember going home that night, like staying up all night and being like, just like closing my eyes and replaying how they would move in the kitchen. And I just thought it was amazing. So when it came time to apply for the externship, I obviously went there. I physically went there, and I asked to speak to the sous chef, and I said, hi, I don't know if you remember me. I was here, 6 months ago. And he was like, yes. I said, it's time for me to do an externship. I said, I have 210 free hours to work. And I'd love to do it here. And he said, we don't take externs. So I was like, all right, cool.
Wait, sorry. Where does the 210 number come from?
That was just the mandated number by the
that
school.
you had to do.
Yes, in order to complete the program. So I left. I took the train home, and I was like so disappointed in myself because I was like, I said something, he responded, and then I left.
You accepted it.
Yeah, and I was like, what the hell? So I went back the following day, and I was like, hi, I know I was here yesterday. I was like, but can I speak to the sous chef? So he comes out, and I was like, I think I was nervous yesterday, and I just want to make sure that we're on the same page. He was like, but we don't take externs. So I was like, cool. I was like, can I speak to the chef? And he was like, he's going to tell you the same thing. So I was like, okay. And I left. And I was even more mad. I was like, when you're infuriated that you're like crying? Like, and I remember like being on the train. So I went back the next day, and I asked for the chef, and he came out, and I said,
wait,
hi.
Where was Lydia in this mix? Had you met her?
She's not there, no.
She was not there.
The only other times I met her were when I ate there. And he came out, and I remember him. He was like one of the most handsome men I've ever seen. Sicilian. His name is Fortunato Nicotra. He cooks in DC now, but he had been with Lydia. She handpicked him from a Michelin star restaurant in I think Torino. So he comes out, very, very strong Sicilian accent. And he says, I heard that you were here. Like, I know who you are. And I was like, oh, thank you. So now I'm smiling, and he's looking at me. He understands me. And I was like, this is a shoo-in, So I explained to him the story, and he was like, we don't take externs. So it was like, that's impossible. So he was like, why is that impossible? I said, because it's part of like the journey. I was like very emphatic. So he starts to like half speak to me in English and Sicilian. And I, at the time, spoke fluent Italian. So I like gave it back to him. And he was like, it was the challenge that he was looking for, and you can see that there was like this synergy. And we spoke for like a half an hour, and he was like, okay, you can work in this kitchen, but in pastry, because women are not allowed in the kitchen.
What?
So I said, no. And I said, Lydia is the chef. There is a woman in the kitchen. Do you know what I'm saying? And he said, she's the only one. The other ones are in pastry. And I said, no. And I left.
Then what happened?
I left, and I cried the whole way home because now
fourth subway
the
ride.
fourth subway. No, this is the third. And I cried all the way home. And I was like, this is crazy. So I went back on Sunday, and I went with my uniform in my hand, and the hatch was open. And I went in the hatch. I changed literally in the hallway, didn't care. I introduced myself to everybody that was down there. I spoke zero Spanish whatsoever. They understood Italian, but I was trying to speak English. And the sous chef came down. He said, what are you doing here? I said, I spoke to the chef the other day. He said, I can come here on the weekends. He said, I could stay in the basement and do whatever you guys need. And he said, he didn't tell me. I said, oh, so call him. He's like, today's his day off. I said, okay, I'm here. I'm going to sweep him up. I'm going to do whatever you guys need me to do. And he like went up in a huff. I worked there for like 2 weeks, and the chef came flying down the staircase. And I said, yeah, I lied. I'm sorry. I said, but I've been here for 2 weeks. Ask any one of these people. Have I not helped you peel carrots? Have I not helped you butcher tuna? Have I not helped you clean calamari? And no, of course, nobody said a word. You know what I'm saying? And he was like, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, if you want me to go, I'll go. And he didn't say go. And I remained there for 4 years.
Okay. For people who are listening to this story, who are like, wait, what? Not once, not
don't
twice.
Don't do it. Don't do it.
No. What is the piece of advice that we have to share from this story?
You have to follow your heart. No is not an answer all the time, because everything is possible. You just have to find the angle. For me, that restaurant was more important not because of the no, because she was the North Star for me of what I thought.
She was the hero.
She was. She still is. She actually wrote a blurb for my book. It was very, very touching.
Have you ever cooked with her?
No,
I
which
think
is
we need to
nuts.
add that to your
I
bucket
know.
list.
I think we do. She wasn't in the kitchen every day.
Mhm.
I didn't know what a celebrity chef does. Do you know what I'm saying? I didn't know what the thing. Without that kitchen, of
Mhm.
all of the kitchens in my career, I would never be who I am today. I learned the
Why?
most there.
Why?
Everything was made from scratch. When I got there were guys that were there for 18 years.
What made you leave?
Well, I was making $6.25 an hour. I remember like 5 days after Easter, I asked my chef for a raise. He put me in the freezer and he asked me if I knew how much fava beans cost. And I said no. And he said, it's more important for me to pay for fava beans than to pay you. I love him. And I have such a respect for him that would never like go away. He taught me so much. But he was of the school of tough love.
Mhm.
He would always tell me, like, you're always worrying about like tomorrow. Worry about right now.
Okay, so walk me through. You go to this restaurant that now is Shuka, but it didn't start off as Shuka.
I worked for Missy Robbins at Avoce. I left Avoce to open up a restaurant in downtown Brooklyn with Saul Bolton. He was the only, at that time, Michelin star for me
Mhm.
was like something that I needed to have. Was probably not on that bucket list, but it was on my culinary bucket list. And he was the only chef in Brooklyn that had a Michelin star. And then he offers me this position to be the chef at a place called Red Gravy on Atlantic Avenue. And I felt like it was almost full circle.
Mhm.
My
Back to
parents
Brooklyn.
had met like a few doors down at a restaurant that was there, but no longer there years ago. It was Brooklyn. It was a chance to get a Michelin star. It was like Italian food. I left Avoce to open up this restaurant. And it was a great experience, but it was kind of like a first love situation where you gave it too much. Like I gave it a part of my soul that it hurt me so badly when it closed that it took me a long time to recover from that. So I called Missy and she was like, just come back here. And I was like, it's a great idea. And then I spoke to my mom and she was like, no one goes back in life. You have to move forward. What's forward? Like, And she was like, you'll find it.
So she'd gone from not speaking to you to actually giving you advice
Yes.
about your
Yeah, yeah.
career.
She'd come around a little bit by that time. I mean, that's almost 10 years in,
Yeah.
I mean, now she's like,
Now
my
she's
daughter's
on
a
TV with
celebrity.
you.
Yeah, are you kidding me? Missy told me she had these friends, Vicky and Mark, that had a restaurant. There was another alumni of Voce that had worked with them. So I called them up and they said, let's meet at the Highline Hotel for drinks or coffee, whatever it was. We had coffee, we were talking. And it was like a really nice conversation. And they said, well, we have this restaurant called 100 Acres. The chef's leaving soon and it's like Southern food and we don't really have a connection to it. And they said, if you can cook anything, what would you cook? And I said, Middle Eastern.
Mhm.
They said, that's crazy. I said, well, why is that crazy? And they said, because it's just not a cuisine that's like going to bring people to the restaurant. So I said, okay. And they said, well, what about Mediterranean? I said, okay. And they said, you do some things from Italy, from Spain, from Greece, from France. And how would you feel about that? I said, yeah, I could do that. So I went and took over 100 Acres. It was a big transition for me because I
Why?
think I was heartbroken from the other restaurant. It didn't have the discipline and structure of all the other restaurants that I had worked in before. They were cooking with canola oil and ladles. And I know that sounds like, so what, right? But I had never come from that. Like I'd come from a place where like everything was just perfect and pristine.
It was
And
like the bear.
yeah. And I remember like there's a Sheridan like on Charlton Street and I slept there for like 10 days. I went into 100 Acres and I scrubbed the walls from top to bottom. I had to like transform that space that I could fit into there.
Mhm.
And it was a very like hard and arduous transition period because these people worked for Mark and Vicky for a long time. They didn't want to change. And then, little by little, I started to get my footing in there and I started to put new things on the menu and they were Mediterranean at first. But the more and more that I would cook with these flavors of the Middle East, of the travels that I've had in the places, the fond memories of Saharis that you said and Damascus and eating out. I always would eat out at Middle Eastern restaurants. I was like, these flavors are amazing.
I heard it was like a New Year's thing that transformed things for you.
It did. So in November, we started to talk about New Year's, and they were like, they were in business for 25 years, and they were like, we'll do a prefix. We do it at Vic's, we do it at Cook Shop. You do a prefix, and I said, prefix is like a dirty word, and I was like, all right, let's make a deal. And at the time, the GM was Lebanese, and I said, I want to throw a party here, and they were like, what kind of party? And I was like, I'm going to call it the Night in Marrakesh. And I said, we're going to go to the garment district and buy some like fabric and hang it on the ceilings. We'll hire a belly dancer. And I'm going to do like this feast style cooking. And they were like, what are you talking about? And I was like, just trust me. And they were like, how much do you want to charge for this thing? And I said, $75. And they said, if you get 100 people to come, you can do it. I picked up my phone. I had 75 people on the phone. She called another 25 and we sold out within like Not even 2 days.
And that moment really is a transformative moment in your career, I would
Really?
say to you.
Tremendous. That night, I must have made anywhere between 35 and 40 dishes that people were supposed to eat.
Whipped feta?
Whipped feta was born that day. We had no idea what we were doing. And it was this wild, but no one knew because the music was loud. The belly dancers were there. They were saying people were having fun. I was like, this is the best night ever. But was I stressed out? I was like, it was hard. My cooks were stressed. It was like the best and worst night of my life. And that's really how Shuka was born. The food was good and people were excited. They also saw something different. We had a PR company at the time and they were like, I think that you need to change this concept, close it. We'll do some redecorating and we need to rename it to give this a real chance.
What's the lesson in that, right? Because they weren't seeing the opportunity and you saw it and somehow you got them to try it.
I think I'm a gambling woman and I think that they're definitely not. And I think it just goes back to like the no doesn't exist sometimes.
But you didn't just try it. One of the things I think is always a lesson is if you really believe in something, you give it your all, which you definitely did.
Which
I mean, messy, but
yes,
but all.
But I think that that's just like going back to what you said. Like that's how I've been as a child.
Mm-hmm.
It's all in. Like it was always about like if I'm going to do this thing, it's going to be the best. I'm going to be the best at it. Not for people, not for validation, but for me.
For yourself.
Yeah, because I feel like if I fail at it, that's okay because I gave it my best.
You left it all on the field.
Yep.
So now you get to Shukette. And really what's interesting is Shukette, which is, really like a cornerstone of the culinary world. I mean, really packed. I say to neighbors, I'm going to Shukette. They're like, how did you get a reservation?
Because you're super VIP.
But really, I mean, every time we go, we say to ourselves, she's a genius. Your menu changes regularly. You do things with vegetables. It's really, I don't know if you think of yourself as an artist, but we say that about you all the time.
Thank you.
And now you also have this career that has taken you onto TV, which, I think there's a lot to still happen for you there. But for some reason, Shukette is the place that freed you, that like really it's where you got your voice. So when you think about that, because there were messy parts of this journey, what is it that it feels like now to walk into Shukette?
It's joyful. It's exciting. I feel invigorated. I also feel inspired. What I gave to Shukette, it gave me back tenfold.
What did you give it?
I gave it a culinary point of view. I gave it a team and a family inside that team that is equally as passionate about food as I am, because I'm not there every day. And they cook from love. When we're together as a staff, like we talk about real things in the restaurant. We never talk about sales and we never talk about money. I'm not driven by those things.
But as we know, it's very expensive now to have a restaurant. So how is it possible?
Well, to be honest with you, you could have a successful restaurant. It doesn't mean it's a lucrative restaurant.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, we pay the bills. We're open. But like, I'm not showing up in a Maybach in front of the restaurant. Like, I make a salary. I'm just being honest with you.
Do you want a Maybach?
No, but I'm just throwing it out there. I would not mind that. But that being said, cooking and having Shukette is much more just a restaurant. We're part of a community in Chelsea. And that is really important to me. It's more than just like being profitable in a restaurant. It's about having a voice, helping others, being part of the community that you're in. And I think that's like the biggest reward in this journey at the end of it. There's a vibe when you walk into Shukette. I always say what you just said about the party thing. Like you walk in saying to yourself, wow, this party is cool. But when you leave, you're like, that was my party.
Well, it's welcoming and you actually have an incredible sense of belonging in that space.
Yeah, I do. I do. More so than I think I feel at Shuka now, which is so weird.
Now you've also done TV.
Yep.
What is surprising to you about that? And what's messy about that?
TV was something that I've always wanted, not so much in the realm of the competition world, but it's something that threw me so off my game.
What do you mean?
I could throw down cooking with anybody. I would feel very comfortable, not in a competitive way, but like if I would not be intimidated if me and Lydia did a dinner. I would welcome it. I think it would be amazing to still learn from her. She could see what I do. TV is a whole nother ballgame. Titans is an amazing show. Bobby puts it together. It has the most integrity when it comes to food. There's no like hoodwinking it. We're not cooking with jelly beans and gummy bears. Like it's two real ingredients that we have to cook. The show feels like life or death.
Every day.
Every day. I'm not saying that in a bad way. I'm just saying like it kind of rocked me in the way because I don't know how to cook competitively. I thought I didn't.
Why'd you say yes?
Because it's hard to say no to him. That's why. And I think that my first answer when he wanted to come talk to me, I said, why are you talking to me? This is crazy. Like there's a million people that are waiting online for this job. And he said to me, because you bring something that no one does.
Which is?
The authentic part of it. He says, it's not the personality, but he says that people could have personality, but they don't know how to cook. And he says, you know how to cook.
So, okay, I have 2 questions for you because I know we've had you on the couch for a long time. One is, what does it cost you, right? You say you want kids, you want a family, maybe, who knows, but we all want, life changes. It is a grueling lifestyle.
Yeah.
So when you look back now with all the success that you've had, and I know you don't like that word, with where this journey's brought you, what does it cost you to get here?
A lot. I think it's cost me missing important things in my family's milestones, birthdays, trips, vacations, time, which is the most precious commodity now. Has it cost me relationships? Yeah, probably. I mean, nobody wants to date someone that gets out at 2:00 in the morning. Do I work at the restaurant every day? No. Am I working all the time? Yes. So yeah, it costs you a lot. There's a lot of physical movement to it. I didn't start taking care of myself until about 3 years ago when I almost had a heart attack.
I'm sorry, did you almost have a heart attack?
My resting heart rate was like 140
Where were you?
on a trip in Greece. And when I came off the plane, I literally couldn't almost walk to get my luggage.
So did you go?
Yeah, I had the whole thing. I figured out I had sleep apnea. I had 1,000 things wrong with me. I was on pills. I'm okay now.
Did it make you stop and rethink?
Yeah, everything. Yeah, I see a trainer now. I'm conscious of what I eat. I try to take care of myself. I don't work crazy late. I work Saturday night. Yeah, I worked until 1:00, but I actually enjoyed it. But it's more of I can pick and choose now when I want to do those things.
Do you think that you're addicted to work? Because sometimes I think I'm addicted to work.
I think that I've had the addiction. I think that I've recognized the addiction. And I think I'm moving forward with trying not to have the addiction by hiring better and having people really embrace their jobs so that they can do the layers of it that don't need to get to me.
Okay, let's talk about the book.
Yeah.
All right, bring it up. Let's take a look. Okay.
You like it? Isn't she pretty?
Okay, she's very pretty.
Thank you.
What made you decide to do a book?
I think the customer started the thing with the book. They would be like, oh, how do you make this? How do you do this? How do you make this? And it's laughable because there are 25 people that make the food at Shukette.
But also
Shuka.
I see you doing, how to make whipped feta on YouTube.
Yeah. Because I'm always at the restaurant, I'm always surrounded with people that know how to cook. Now that I'm out in the world a little bit more, I know that people really don't know how to cook and they're intimidated to cook. And I find it silly because I think it's very easy to learn. And I think there's a mystery when it comes to Middle Eastern or Mediterranean food because it's all these ingredients that people don't know. Everybody knows what sumac is this day and age. Pomegranate molasses is right next to honey in a regular aisle where 10 years ago.
Tahini soft serve.
Give me a break. You know what I'm saying? So all these things have a voice and a place. And I think that this book is created for the home cook. None of the recipes are more than 10 ingredients. They're very simple to make. It is super fun. I wanted to write a book that sounded like me.
And do you feel like you've accomplished that?
Too much so. There's too many bros in the book.
Honestly, I can't wait to try it. And I grew up in a family where my grandmother cooked. And I don't really cook that much, but I'm excited to break yours open.
And I think the chapters are fun. And they're called All Up in Your Grill. I think the fruit section is called No Pits Allowed. The salad section is called Always Dressed, Never Stressed. And, on YouTube or Instagram, you can find me. I'll be cooking from this book. I'll be cooking with friends through this book to show you how easy it is. But I really think that I didn't want to write a book just to say I wrote a book. I wanted to write a book that would be dog-eared, a book that would be filled with honey and sticky pages, somewhere that someone takes this recipe and passes it down and it becomes the family recipe of their family.
So people need to pre-order the book.
They need to pre-order it right now. You could find the link on my Instagram or my YouTube, or if you just want to Google Mediterranean All the Way, it's on Amazon, Kitchen Arts and Letters. I like to support local bookstores, but you could also buy it on Amazon and Target.
One final question for you. Any advice you would give to somebody in their 30s?
Everything is possible. If you think that you're too old or the switch in life or whatever, I think that things are at their fingertips more than ever. Ask the right questions, find a path to follow and make it happen. You only have one life and it's worth living.
And get on the subway 5 times crying to get to the yes. That's my takeaway for you. Thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you.
It was as amazing. I think we really need a session with your mom next. Now, I knew that this conversation with Chef Ayesha was going to be lively, bold, and colorful. It's who she is, and it's definitely how you describe her cooking. So listen, tell friends, And, this is how we get to tell more messy stories, when you actually subscribe and get 10 other friends to do the same.